All right. So tonight we're going to talk about gear, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What I did is I put together a little like a slide presentation, and we'll just go round robin. We can start with whoever wants to start, and I'll put the screen up, and we'll go from there. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Sound good. Okay, so I'm here tonight with Brian Michaud, Greg Levitz, and we're going to talk about gear used in scuba diving. And can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Let's talk about gear, baby. And all right, so tonight's conversation will be about different types of gear. We'll go over different types, different designs and features. We're also going to list some pros and some cons of each type of gear or each particular piece of gear. We're not going to have a debate on which style is better than another style. Cool? Agreed?
Yep.
Because we all know split fins are the best.
I was wondering when that was coming up.
So, Brian, why don't we start with you, and we're going to talk about diving suits, thermal protection.
Yeah. So if you dive where it's cold,
Yep.
which where we are, well, wait, let me rephrase that, where two of us are in New England.
Wow, that sounded like a dig.
Well, hey, it's a little warmer where you are. Maybe not by much, but a touch. Diving suits are absolutely imperative when you dive. You gotta have some sort of exposure protection. Being displayed there looks like a regular wetsuit, a semi-dry, and a dry suit. And personally, after the first time I dove dry, I was like, I don't think I'm ever gonna dive wet again. However, now there's times where I do enjoy diving wet, even in the colder waters. If it's a crazy, crazy hot day, 98 degrees, high humidity, and we're only going to be in the water for an hour, I actually prefer diving wet. You get a little refreshment while you're in the water. There's all different kinds of suits. You've got 3mm shorty, all the way up through dry. And then even in the dry suit, there's different variations there. Crushed neoprene, which is what I dive, or Tri-Lam. I've tried that. Interesting way to dive, a little different. It did take a little getting used to. I personally have never tried a semi-dry, so not entirely sure how that works.
Is that called a wetsuit?
What's that?
Is that called a wetsuit? That's not my
That's everyone that has tried it has basically said the same thing. Yeah, it's a wetsuit. So I've never bothered with it.
And I found, because I do have a semi-dry suit, it keeps you a little warmer because it prevents the water from flushing in and out as easily.
Oh, I thought your semi-dry was just because your P-valve leaked.
Ah, no, that was Kohler's P-valve.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Wow.
But yeah, it's something that is, even in the warmer climates, you go down to the Caribbean or whatever, you may not be wearing it for thermal protection, but you may be wearing it for sun protection. You may be wearing a suit so that if you happen to bump up against something, you don't get cut or stung. So while there's all different types of suits out there, depending on what you're diving will help to determine what you need to wear.
Because no matter what temperature water you're in, the water you're in is generally lower than your body temperature, so eventually you are going to get chilled.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So a good example would be, for me, when I'm in the Keys, I always wear a 3mm, a full 3mm, because you do, after even a couple dives, you kind of do get a little chilled. The water might be 80 degrees, but it's still cold. It's not the hottest. Sometimes it gets hotter, but on the bottom, it's still pretty chilly.
And see, depending on where I'm diving, even if I'm in Florida, I'm in my dry suit.
Right.
That's just the way I prefer to dive.
Yeah.
But yet you're in Florida doing the caves.
Most of the time, yes.
That's
Yeah.
different because that's colder water.
That's cold water.
70s. Yeah.
Like when I go south, generally we're doing a cruise, we're doing a Caribbean dive. I've done a number of dives just in my swim trunks. Because it's the water is 85 degrees and you're only going to be in the water for a half hour, 40 minutes, then they pull you back out to go to another spot. So I've done a bunch of them just in my swimsuit, which I've stopped doing just because some of those areas, the current, the swell, whatever kicks up and you end up getting bumped up into something and you wish you had the abrasion resistant, the protection.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know what I do is like, so for my 3 mil that I use, like in the Keys or anywhere really, I have it set up 3 different ways. So I'll use a 3 mil with a vest. You're going too far.
I'm not trying. I'm trying to get.
Okay.
Keep going. Go ahead.
So I'll wear a 3 mil, a full 3 mil, and then I'll put a vest over that. And then if that's cold, I'll put like a Farmer John top. I don't know what they're really called, but it's like a Farmer John-ish thing. And that works great. And then I usually have 2 different types of hoods with me. I'm not a big bib hood, one with a bib. I don't really like that. But I always wear either a dry suit hood or a beanie. Actually, in the islands, it'll be a beanie. So I don't get burned, number one, and it just keeps the water from flushing for me.
So let's break this down for a minute. So starting with our wetsuit.
Yeah.
We have different thicknesses of wetsuit. You can go from a rash guard up to a 7 mil Farmer John, which ends up with the 2 pieces, ends up putting what? 14 mil right in your core.
Yeah.
Next one over is a semi-dry suit, and at the ends, at the openings, I should say, so the wrist, ankles, and neck are actually seals that seal so the water doesn't flush in and out as easily. And as we talked about, our dry suit keeps us the driest because you still tend to get damp, especially around the neck area if you're turning. But it keeps us the driest and potentially keeps us the warmest. Brian, like you were saying, there are several different kinds of dry suits, from a tri-lam to a neoprene, crushed neoprene to neoprene dry suits. So all different dry suits. And so how are you going to pick which suit is right for you?
One of the best things to do is to go when they do I know Dewey does it, or they were doing it. I don't know if they've done it recently. They do a dry suit days.
Dewey Dog Day.
Yeah.
Where they go to the shore, they go to a quarry or whatever, and they have all their dry suits on display.
Yep.
And you can go try them. I was fortunate enough at the shop I'm at, we had a couple different ones that I could get into, and I was able to try them that way to decide which one I wanted to dive with. But being able to try them if you can.
That's a pretty good investment.
It's not cheap. It's not cheap.
So you're best off to try a couple and figure out which one you like the best.
My first one was a full neoprene dry suit, and I needed so much lead to compensate for that.
You sure it was the suit and not your midsection?
That was later on. This is when I was skinny.
Yeah, he doesn't fit in that suit anymore.
Oh no, I don't fit in any suit anymore. But it was a Henderson. I'll just kind of funny one actually.
Oh wow!
I paid $700 or $800 for it. I believe it or not, like 3 years later, I got my money back for it. Sent it because in Alaska, where the water is like typically always cold, that's what they wear, and you don't really wear an undergarment or anything underneath it.
Huh.
And so I sold that. This is 20 years ago. I sold that one, and then I've tried a bunch of different ones, but
Hmm.
yeah.
So anything else we want to add about suits, thermal protection suit?
Well, yeah, something like on a dry suit, a prime example. Every suit has certain aspects that make it more comfortable for an individual. But
Okay.
like, let's just talk dry suits for example. If you're not wreck diving and soaking, you're just kind of going for a dive, then you don't need a crushed neoprene or a tri-lam that's got a rash guard on it. You might just not need that. I mean, the Bear one was indestructible, the one that I have, and you just can't tear the material. But I've been in some tri-lams that you could slice relatively, I would say, pretty easily on a rack.
Okay. Now, what about zippers?
I don't care what they say. Self-donning and doffing dry suits, there are very few people that can truly contort the way they need to contort to get in and out completely unassisted. It may be that last little inch that you got to get the zipper up so that you can do the rest by yourself. In all the diving I've done, for the most part, I've been able to do it. At one point, I gained a little bit of weight, and that last inch, I just couldn't get that. I needed help on that last inch. But with a lot of the people that I've assisted with dry suit training and whatnot, that self-donning suit, that was that little bit on the shoulder, and if you don't get it all the way to the end, you're not going to get your arms and head through the opening. You're going to get partway through, and you're going to get stuck, and now you're really wishing you had asked for help.
So I used to tie a rope to my roof rack with a loop on the end, and that sometimes I would just do that. I learned the hard way, of course, by getting stuck in a suit in front of my house, as I was so excited to get the new suit in. But it happens. We all laugh at each other, and
Yep.
We're laughing at you right now.
I know. I just didn't know. I didn't know the rope trick. That was the problem.
How many shades of blue did you turn?
So then I must be the only one. I've never had a problem with my dry suit. My front zip dry suit. Never had a problem getting into and out of by myself. I do have a spare back zip.
Yeah.
That I need if I'm using my spare dry suit, I need someone to help me with that.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
It's funny, on my back zip, I never had any issues because I literally used the rope trick and it worked perfect.
Yep.
Every time.
So, not that we don't have more to talk about, but we got a lot to talk about, and
yeah, that's good.
we're stuck on suits. So, our next one, let's talk about masks. Okay, Greg?
Yeah,
Up
clear
next, buddy.
skirts. Yeah, clear skirts versus black skirts, or nowadays I'm sure there's pink and purple and greens.
Okay. So where are the advantages? Where are the disadvantages? What do you look for in a mask?
I look for low volume.
Okay.
Look, one that does not carry a lot of water, so it's a lot easier to clear, and one that is comfortable, and one that's not going to set me back $200 every time I want to replace it. So I would always buy, 2 at a time every year and replace them. But I'm looking for something that's comfortable. That's the bottom line. It has to be comfortable and it has to fit. I don't care about brands. That didn't really impress me. There was some really expensive, really nice ones. That Hollis one's a really nice, expensive one.
I have two. I love that mask.
Yeah, it just had to fit. And that's the bottom line. And it's funny because you put a person next to you that looks the same and you put it on them and it's not sealing properly. I'm always looking for, as if wherever the lens is, in the center of that lens, I like my pupils lined up through that. I've seen some folks have, these huge masks that fit up on top. I want something that, just like a pair of glasses, my pupils are right dead center, and the skirt to fit properly. I don't like bells and whistles on the strap at all. I mean, I just don't. I like it really keep it simple. I do wear a black one. It just seems to cut the glare down a little bit for me.
Okay, but there's actually a reason for a black skirt. So why don't you talk about that?
You know, go for it, because
Okay.
I got to tell you a funny one. What's advertised and what's not advertised for it. I
Yep.
found both of them. For me, it just I didn't notice the real difference. So in darker water, for me, I noticed that I was more focused on with a dark with a dark skirt. It was just very easy. I didn't get distracted by all the extra lights from
And
the clear silicone.
and that's to me, I believe that's the primary reason. A black solid skirt versus a clear skirt on a night dive or a penetration dive or a cave dive, you don't get the other lights from your teammates or from
Yeah.
other divers. You are focused on basically what's in your vision.
Right.
Yeah, it eliminates the ghosting, they call it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ghosting. Okay.
So we also have a couple different options as far as a strap.
So obviously this is option number one on the Hollis. Look at it, it's open in the back. It's completely open. And then the other one is just, if you look at I can't tell what the other one is. It's just one single strap, which it might not be though, but I can't tell on this one. But the option for me, it just didn't matter as long as it stayed on my head.
Yep.
That's the bottom line. And it was, some people dove, like when you're diving with a hood, some people would put the mask on, then put the hood on, or some people would put the hood on, then the mask over it, and then just seal it around. It just depends. It depends
Okay.
on what you're comfortable with. Some people leave the mask underneath the hood so that they don't get knocked. And if they get knocked, it won't go anywhere.
No, very cool.
And then they used to sell, the biggest thing was, I don't know if you remember, the neoprene sleeve over.
And that's what I was going to say. They do sell optional straps that don't
Yeah.
break.
Right.
And that's the big advantage to that.
The problem with those that I've found is that they don't stretch either. So when you are kind of moving around a little bit, they sometimes feel a little on the tight side.
Okay.
That's just something that I've noticed. And of course, we're wearing, for me, I'm wearing my mask as loose as I possibly can, but still keeping a seal.
Mhm.
I'm not keeping it super tight. You'll see some folks will crank down on it, and at the end of the week, they'll still have that mark.
Yeah, but a lot of that comes from inexperience.
No, of course, but you've
seen, yes.
Yeah. I liked it. I've always liked it loose, but
Yep.
just as long as it doesn't let water in.
Brian, you got anything to add?
I say I'm with Greg on the low volume.
Okay.
I've got, I don't know, 6 different masks that I have in my bag at all times. One's got a GoPro attachment to it. If there's something that we're going to do, I want to bring my GoPro, I'll throw that one on. It's a mostly comfortable mask. It's not my favorite. My favorite mask is crazy low volume mask. Fortunately, my nose isn't too big to fit in the nose pocket. It touches a little bit, but there's no pressure, so it doesn't hurt. But I think the volume of it is something like a cup and a quarter. So
Be less than that.
it takes nothing to clear it. And it's clear. I mean, there's nothing to, and I love that. And the fact that it's so close to your face, your field of vision is huge.
Yeah.
When I put on my mask that I can attach the GoPro to, it's a little bit bigger than that. So my field of view is brought in noticeably.
Brian, is it because it's sticking out farther?
Because it's coming out further. So now
You
you're
lose
looking
that
through
field.
you're looking through more of a tunnel before it opens up.
Right.
Whereas the mask that I dive sits so close, I could just about see my hands to the side of my head through my periphery.
Yeah.
Because it's such a low volume mask. Black skirt. It's got the adjustable straps are nice. It's got little pins on them. You tap the pins and it loosens up, so it just about falls off, which is the perfect spot, the right amount of tension. This is my second one of that,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a little heartbroken that they stopped making that exact mask. So when I go to replace it, it'll be a different one, but try to get as close to that as I can.
What are your feelings on colored lenses? I had one that had a dark lens. It was like a polarized lens.
Polarized lens?
Yeah, I didn't personally like it because it was so scratchable.
I dove a red lens that I didn't like.
Yeah.
Did not like it at all. It colored everything.
Yeah.
And I was having a hard time with it. And then there's another one out there. I think it's called the Arc. It's a tinted lens, and it's supposed to pull in more light. And I thought it was okay, but I wasn't that impressed by it.
You know what I found? I found I couldn't read my computer for some reason when I was through it. Yeah, the polarized light. It just
the polarizing was off. Yep. No, I've never dove a polarized mask, but yeah, I like the plain clear glass.
Yeah.
I may have to throw some cheaters in it soon, but
So my input is just what I said. I own 2 of the Hollis masks. I've gone through a half dozen masks. That's what I found to be the most comfortable for me.
Yeah.
That's bottom line. That's why I went with it. That's why I stayed with it.
I like that mask. I've dove it. It's a great mask. That one actually is pretty close to my low volume one.
Okay.
The volume on that's just a touch more than the one that I dive. The one I think is an Atomic. And you look at it and go, oh, that must be for a 5-year-old kid. It's tiny. It's this tiny little thing, but it's awesome. I love the thing.
Isn't it funny? It's almost like a boat. You never really see 2 identical boats. There's always something a little different. It's like masks and divers. Everybody's got their own preference. You never really, sometimes you'll see if they're all at the same shop and they're all that day buying them, well, maybe they're going to buy the same, but usually everybody's got a little bit of a different mask on them. It's kind of
that comes down to just about every piece of gear that we own. There are
absolutely
differences between, even though we all dive, the 3 of us dive similar setups.
Yeah.
There's something different. Brian uses a 7-foot hose, and instead of tucking it into his waist belt, he's so big he just wraps around and puts it in his mouth. I'm not saying he's fat. He's just big.
Just the way it's comfortable. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Everything has to do with comfort levels.
That's exactly right.
We got to move on a little bit.
Yep.
I tuck that hose down. I'm going to need a 10-foot hose.
So we're going to talk about snorkels, and it's a piece of gear. It's a piece of gear required for basic open water, and to me, I know a lot of people. I'll talk about this one. A lot of people are going to say, "Get rid of the snorkel. It's useless." Blah blah blah. I agree. Get rid of it off of your mask. I think it's a snag hazard, even if you're not penetrating anything. On fishing line, Greg and I, we've dove Bull Point several times, and it would, we have stuff get caught on fishing line without the snorkel. So you can just imagine how much more you would get caught with the snorkel. With that being said, I do believe you should keep a snorkel on you. I keep a folded snorkel or a pocket snorkel in my pocket whenever I go diving, just in case something happens, I find myself away from shore or away from an exit, and I have to snorkel or surface swim back to a point where I can get out. It's either I'm kicking on my back, and with a set of doubles that stinks, or I'm snorkeling back. So I keep one in my pocket just for safety's sake. So what do you guys think? What do you guys, and they make all different kinds. As you can see, I will go further. I'm sorry, I gypped my speech. They have a very basic snorkel here. And then they have semi-dry snorkels, and they have purge valves at the bottom. And I don't know what this strap-looking thing is, but it looks cool.
That's just the guys. That's just for snorkeling. That it a mask.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they make several different types of snorkels with several different features. I'm not a big fan of these added features. This is the exact snorkel I have in my pocket. I do simple, basic. It gets the job done, and I can fold it up and put it away.
Yeah, I agree with keep it simple. My first one was interesting because it didn't have a flexible bottom, and it had a dry top that looked like I don't know, it looked like a hockey puck on top, basically. And that thing was so uncomfortable. It was always like hitting me in the face. It really wasn't good. And then the next one I bought was the blue one on the bottom. It had, and I had that one for years.
This here.
And I still, surprisingly, it's like the #1 found snorkel in Jamestown. I don't know why that is, but you find those things all the time. Every time I dove there, I found a snorkel.
Yep.
And then I ended up, of course, once you start having areas where you can put them like pockets, mine's a little fold up cheapo, and it's keep it simple, stupid. Absolutely.
Okay. Brian, what do you got?
So mine's even more basic than the upper blue one. It's essentially barely a J tube with a flexible bottom.
Okay.
I don't even think it has a purge on the bottom. It's one that we had at the shop.
Yep.
Way back when, that they inherited from when they bought the shop, and at any rate, that's what I prefer to use. Something really simple. Stowing it on a dive for me is a little more difficult because it doesn't fold up like the Oceanic one there on the bottom. But I do carry it. My wife likes the one on top there, with the dry snorkel.
Yep.
Funny little story. We had picked one up down in the Caribbean. I forget what brand it is, but you want to talk about a dry snorkel? That thing was a dry snorkel. Another instructor didn't believe it because we had dry snorkels in the shop, which were more semi-dry than truly dry. So he's goofing off in the pool. He takes her snorkel, says, I want to try this thing out. Goes to the bottom of the pool and got his tongue stuck in the snorkel.
Ugh.
Because the flap kicked up and it sealed. And when he went down to the bottom, he was like, wow, that really worked. And it sucked the end of his tongue into the snorkel. He thought it was going to be just like all the other ones that would let a little water in.
Yeah.
Nope, that one didn't. And she loves it. If she needs to use her snorkel, she wants the dry snorkel. For her, it's a bit of peace of mind that she's not going to, suck up any water. But I like the old straight tube, no valves, no nothing, no frills to them. That's my preference.
Nope.
Where do you keep it if you're not wearing it? Brian?
You're not asking that, are you?
Well, I mean, if it's just a little way.
Forget it. Way over your head.
Oh no. So if we're diving in the Caribbean where I'm wearing like my 3 mil shorty or something,
yeah,
I actually just take and I tuck it up my shorty pant leg. Believe it or not.
Okay. Oh, I wasn't even thinking that. I was thinking a little bungee to your to the back plate or something. That's what I was thinking.
No, it's there, or I'll take and I'll go inside one of the straps on my wing and tuck it all in.
Okay.
So only the little J is sticking out.
Okay.
So I can pull it out almost like you're pulling out a we lost Todd.
Well, okay. I keep mine in my pocket though.
So do I.
All right, let's move on.
Next.
Oh, okay.
Regulators.
Brian, why don't you talk to us about regulators?
Okay.
I don't want to know where you stow it.
So a performance regulator
Yes.
is an amazing thing. I happen to dive performance regs. Last year we went on a cruise. I didn't take my regulators with me. I'm like, we'll rent them if they're fine. And when we started breathing off the regulators, because we were on a cruise, and we were only doing the 1-2 tank dive. Holy cow! I forgot what a run-of-the-mill regulator. While it breathes fine, plenty of air, there wasn't an issue there, but I could tell the difference between a regular run-of-the-mill, it'll do the job kind of regulator versus a high-performance, balanced reg. I actually happen to dive the Atomic. I've got a few of them, and they all breathe amazing. I think we were using a Sherwood on the cruise that we did. Again, a great reg. My first reg was a Sherwood, but it's not a performance regulator. It's not something that's going to breathe really easy. And when you're down at depth, maybe you're working a little bit, just having that really nice Cadillac breathing is something that's amazing. I didn't realize how spoiled I was until I went back to, what you would call like a workhorse. Just, it's a good solid reg. It's going to give you air. It's going to give you all the air you want. But it just gives it to you a little differently. And, a couple of examples there of some really good regulators.
Right. So I dive. I think that's an MK25. It's hard to tell. I dive the Scuba Pros with a turret on the bottom, and that's where that's actually on the bottom connection. I think there's 5 ports on that one. I can't even see. I hook my my long hose to the bottom completely, pointing straight out.
Pointing straight down.
Yeah, and then I kind of tilt mine a little bit, and then it's a din, so it's very streamlined.
So Brian, like you were talking about, you do have, these are all 3, because I dive the Aqualung Legend up top. These are all 3 very high performing regulators. You wouldn't have any problem taking these, and I've taken mine to 300 feet. They'll breathe the same at 300 that they do at 50. The other regulators that you mentioned less expensive. I don't want to say cheap regulators, but less expensive regulators. You usually have, I would say, 3 grades. While an open water, someone that knows they're going to stay in 60 feet of water, I wouldn't have any problem recommending they buy a less expensive regulator, because they're not going to notice the difference in 60 feet of water. To me, my opinion, they're not going to notice the difference between breathing these 2 regulators in 60 feet. Where they're going to notice a performance difference is when they take it a little deeper, and then the work of breathing becomes a little harder, little stiffer.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Now, so
here's a no-no. Look at the sand all over that one.
Well, hey, that's Todd's
fine.
reg.
Dude, oh yeah, that's right.
It's Todd's reg.
If you ask Bert, that's what some of my regs look like.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, like you were saying, they wouldn't notice. Penny spoiled. She dives my regs.
Yep.
When we go together, she did not notice a difference when we rented equipment. She didn't notice it. She goes, "No, it breathed fine." And I'm like, "Nah, I could tell the difference
Yeah.
because it wasn't my reg, and I know what my reg breathes like." I could tell that it wasn't. It was fine, but it wasn't there.
Right.
You know, it was good, but it wasn't great.
You,
You know?
you have, just like you do in cars, you have economy, you have mid,
Luxury.
you have luxury.
Yeah. And like I said, she couldn't tell. She's like, "No, it was fine. I didn't notice anything." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Well, that's good that you didn't notice. I'm happy you didn't. But the next time we go away, you're going to be breathing your own regulator. You're not going to be breathing a rental."
Right.
Just because that's what I own. I own the high performance. I paid to have that level of comfort.
Right. Oh, don't get me wrong. Hands down, they're worth the money that they cost.
Yeah.
By all means, those regulators are worth what you're going to pay for those regulators. I'm just saying, someone that's going to stay, and they know they're going to stay in that 60-foot range, they don't need a regulator that can go to 300 feet.
But let's look at it another way.
Yep.
If money were no option,
well,
no. This is an interesting one because we had a debate at one point.
Yep.
You take two identical regulators. One was like a titanium one that weighed absolutely nothing and cost double than the other one.
Yep.
Same regulator, same internal components. Everything was identical to it.
So they breathe. They both breathe the same.
The same.
Okay.
Higher. The parts were more. Titanium. The materials were more expensive.
Yep.
Okay. So the question now becomes, is it better to dive if you are putting, like for me, I wanted a regulator that actually weighed something, because then it's extra weight I don't have to put on my belt. So my first regulator that I had, because I'm an aluminum 80, which, empty floats, it was like a Dacor, and it was the same one. It weighed probably like 6 pounds. It was the same one that I used during my open water class. And I figured it was good for my open water class. I'll just buy the same one. It worked. I had that for years. Worked fine, no problems. Then I stepped up. I got a nice deal on some regs, some Scuba Pros. Did I notice the real big difference in breathing? A smidgen. Was it worth the extra money? I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know if it was worth the extra money, but I got them because I liked them, and I still have them today.
Yeah.
So.
No, absolutely. Well, we're just about out of time. We didn't get through even half of what we were going to. So why don't we do this? We're going to make this like a multi-part thing. We have several parts to go. So we're gonna leave it here. We're gonna say to be continued, and we'll
to whet any appetites that may be looking. What are some of the other things coming up?
No.
Other things coming up. We're going to talk about your gauges. We're going to talk about, let me get over to.
I say real quick, pop the slides through.
I want to pop the slide. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to talk about gauges. We're going to talk about computers. Gauges, bottom timers, computers, tanks, BCDs, lead weight. Greg knows where that comes from. Boots, fins, and cutting devices.
This is perfect.
Okay?
Cool.
Yep.
So, like I said, we're going to leave this to be continued. And coming up, we'll break it up into a couple more sections. And we will we'll see you next week.
Very good.